All right, good morning, good afternoon, good evening, ladies and gentlemen, wherever you are in the world. I am Andrew Baker from the Facebook page Multi-Continental Wrestling Alliance, and it's my show, Friendly Fire. I was scheduled to have the belt mark, Bill Gritz, here this morning. Unfortunately, he's had some things come up that needed his attention. So he's had to pull out. I tried to get a couple of other people to come on. They were unfortunately unavailable, busy for various reasons. No problem with that. I'm hoping to get a friend of ours, admin moderator in the group, Charles Redman. He's hopefully coming shortly. But I thought I missed last week due to my own family commitments that I needed to do. So I thought, well, I'll put something out again this week. So he should be coming along shortly. If you want to ask a question, put it in the comments below, and I'll pop it up and answer it. We got Hippie Joe from the Facebook groups saying good evening, Hippie Joe. Hope you're well tonight. Wherever you are. Sorry, just taking care of some business here. Charles should be along in about 5 minutes. Alrighty then. Didn't I, Joe? My apologies. I was a little bit flustered this morning once Bill cancelled, and I was busy, as I said, busy asking some others and trying to work out contingency plans. My apologies. I will have you on at some point. I did have 4 weeks organised. Bill Gritz, and the next 3 weeks after that. Unfortunately, with Bill cancelling today, I will reschedule him. Next week, as of this stage, I'm not sure whether I'll be able to come and do a show with a guest. I may have some family commitments that have popped up that may need my attention. So I'm not sure as yet, but people in the groups will know. So a little bit about me. I'm Andrew Baker. I am admin of Multi-Continental Wrestling Alliance on Facebook, and on YouTube. We're on Twitter, MWA World, MWA World 2019. Hang on, I don't want to get this wrong. We are on Twitter, Instagram, YouTube, as well. Posting content there, and I'm just looking up the IDs for them. You can find us on Twitter at MWA World. We post a lot of, starting to post content there. We are still new to all of this. My fellow admin Piers has a show, regular show, where we are attempting to and getting wrestling stars from various promotions. Saturday just gone, he had Shane Taylor from Ring of Honor, interviewed him. So Instagram, we are MWA World as well, so you can find us there. And YouTube, we are Multi-Continental Wrestling Alliance on YouTube. So you can find some of the past interviews that Piers and I and another admin, Christy, have been a part of. We've had Bill Alfonso at one point. However, due to some technical issues, we had to cut that short. But we do hope to have him on again at some point. And a couple of others. And also Piers Austin and our other admin, Christy. Every Wednesday, 9:30 Australian time, they have a live 2020 questions show where they each ask each other 20 questions. And we also throw open questions for anybody watching at the time that they can answer for bonus points. And at the end of the night, whoever has the most points is the winner. Excuse me. So that is Wednesday nights. Jameson, how are you, buddy? Do some work for your Peter. Well, have a good night, good day, wherever you are. Daniel, another member of the various wrestling pages on Facebook. Hey, bro, how you going? So yes, we bit of history. We got started. Me and Piers got together from meeting in various wrestling Facebook groups, Wrestling Belt Collector Facebook groups. A lot of them are American, overseas pages. We got together, said, look, we know there's got to be the same sort of fandom community here in Australia that just hasn't been tapped into yet. How about we get together and make the Facebook page and try tap into the Australian side of things. At that point, it was, excuse me. At that point, it was belt collecting discussion, merchandise sort of group in the early stages. We've only been around for two and a half, almost 3 months maybe. And we're currently at 370 members, which is pretty good in that short space of time. So we got together and said, how about we create this group and see how we go. So we started out, concentrating on, merchandise, wrestling discussion, belt collections. However, as we've gone along and decided to try and get some of these wrestling personalities to come along, we decided to, because at that point we were Multi-Continental Belt Society. That was our original name. So as we've grown, we've decided to encompass not just belts, belt collecting, wrestling discussion, whatever, broaden to all facets of wrestling. So we've changed our name to Multi-Continental Wrestling Alliance, as we are today here. And yeah, growing strong. We are in close communication and have lots of help from a lot of the other wrestling belt and wrestling discussion page admins. Wrestling Review Society, we work closely with Kevin Rodriguez, Wayne Bullard, and their wives and partners, Ashley and Victoria. They've been a great help in growing this group so far, and much appreciation to them. My first Friendly Fire show I did actually interviewed Wayne Bullard, so if you go back and go back through the Facebook group archives, you'll find that there. Wasn't connected to YouTube at that point, so unfortunately not archived on YouTube. Hopefully Charles will come along soon. Daniel, good bro, watching the best of Sting. Good. Should be a good watch, that. What do you think of the rumours on Sting and Taker possibility that people are going on about? We have Charles. Good morning, Charles.
Hey, how are you?
Good, thank you. Just been sitting here talking for 10 minutes, hopefully entertaining the audience, future audience who may view this.
Yeah, no, sorry about that. Yeah, I rushed back here, and yeah.
Yeah, panic morning for me too, with Bill unfortunately cancelling due to various commitments and trying to get any guests that might want to pop in, and no luck there.
No,
so.
That's fair enough. That's fair enough. Yeah, no, I think that's that. I get the feeling this is why I was brought in, just to fill the gaps whenever needed.
Oh, no, not just that, but you're a good wealth of knowledge, and you've been around in the groups for a long time, so you're a good extra to have, I suppose you could say.
Yeah, I'm sort of So what's happening? What are we doing here?
I don't know, a bit of a schmozzle show this morning. I wanted to get some content out, having missed last week due to my own personal commitments. So I thought I'd get some sort of content out here this week, because I'm not sure next week. I may have some personal things again pop up that need looking after, but I'm not sure at this point.
Right. Okay.
So, what can we talk about? You watching any wrestling this past week, in particular?
I haven't, unfortunately. No. Yeah, I've got to get back on it at some point. I've got to start. Because I feel like I'm going to add nothing to these shows if I don't watch something. So
it's hard to get the time.
It is, and I don't know where to start, because now there's so much. I'm like, fuck. What do I choose? So
exactly.
I've got to start somewhere. Is there anything you recommend? Anything you recommend, at least from this week, or just in general?
I haven't been haven't had the time or the ability to watch a lot myself lately.
It's a nightmare.
Yeah, I think the last thing I watched was I watched a bit of old Raw DVD. I got a Raw, I think it was the 20th anniversary box set that they brought out with various episodes of Raw. So
okay, that's awesome.
Yeah.
That's probably more my speed anyway. I'd much rather watch that, to be honest.
Yeah, well,
if I'm being honest.
My first exposure to wrestling that I can recall, I mean, I'm sure I would have been aware of Hulk Hogan back in the early 90s, or late 80s, early 90s. I was born in 82, so probably late 80s, early 90s. Probably Hogan I would have been aware of, but my first real exposure to it was in 98. I think I worked out the Survivor Series, where Vince and The Rock screwed Mankind at the end there, and Channel 10 back in the day played that late one.
It's incredible.
Late one Sunday night, and I stayed up and watched it, and it hooked me from there. And then discovering the Undertaker and following his career over these 20, nearly 30 years, and it's just been.
It's a long time. I mean,
Attitude Era is my favorite.
Oh yeah, I'm with you on that. I think between the Attitude, like between that 97. Early 97 up to, for me personally, up to about 2007, that 10-year period, it tapered off, and but that is, to me, that's two spectrums. So it's Attitude Era and the Ruthless Aggression. That to me is the best wrestling I think we ever got, because in one sense you got the best storytelling, and then I think Ruthless Aggression was the best mix of new athletic young stars. It didn't have the same feel, but it it still had that little Attitude Era vibe.
It was there, but it wasn't there, sort of thing. You could see where it had come from.
Yeah, it was a bit. It felt a bit more PC. But then I look back and you go, well, was it really more PC? Like the hot lesbian action with Bischoff and, geez, the Eugene. The Eugene character who I was a fan of, but I don't know if you can get away with having a mentally handicapped character now.
Yeah.
So you look back and you go, fuck, was it much more tapered or was it just less in your face? That's kind of what it feels like. Just a little less in your face. Which
question here from Jonathan: what are your thoughts on the Fiend versus Goldberg? Honestly, move on. Stop using, as much as I love to see them, stop using the old stars. Build the new stars. Like with the Rumble, I was quite pleased to see Drew get the chance for the title shot. You know, you need to build the new stars.
I agree with that. That's my issue with WWE in general. Is because they haven't built the new stars, they have to keep going back to the well. But every time they go back to Goldberg or go back to whoever, Hulk Hogan, they don't take that opportunity to build the new stars, so then they have to go back again and again. And it's almost like they forget why they're going back to that. They're meant to be going back to that well so they don't have to go back to the well. But they forget that completely and they fuck it.
And
Jesus.
It's not like they don't have the talent numbers there to use.
No, they've got how many? 130 people on their roster?
Yeah, and you see the same matches over and over again, it seems like. We got news of Roman versus Corbin again at Saudi, I think it was. I was like, how many times do we need to see that?
They have completely fucked up. In my opinion, they've completely screwed up Roman Reigns. Not completely screwed him up, so that might be a bit dramatic. But I just feel like they could have done so much more with him. Like he's such a marketable guy, and I just don't feel like they're doing all they should with him. They're taking the easy route with him, and it's like, put some effort in. And they don't. There's no effort in anyone.
No, it's a bit of a letdown at some points.
I don't know. It's a nightmare.
I mean, what are your thoughts on the Fiend character on itself?
I like it. Like I'm not those sort of. Generally, I don't like those like weird, like Undertaker type characters because I always feel like they're a rip off of the Undertaker. That's type of, I don't know, supernatural character. But it kind of reminds me, not in the same way that the Broken Hardys did, but that type of. It's got its own twist on that whole supernatural, that whole sort of dark and weird character. It's not a carbon copy of The Undertaker. And that's kind of what I like about that. Mate, and I think he's underutilized anyway. It's ridiculous.
Yeah. They've screwed the character a couple of times with choices and, for example, that red lighting was just god awful.
I don't know what they're doing.
Once they've done that the first time and caught the fan backlash on that, I don't know why they continued it for the 2 or 3 more matches that they used it for.
That's the weird thing with them is when fans he's got a lot of it, and I just don't get why when the fans say they like something, they tend to drop it. When fans say they don't like something, they tend to run with it. It makes absolutely no sense.
Then you hear all these reports that they're paying these guys, big money to stay so they don't go to the other companies. Whereas, if you want to try and make a profit, keep the money, let the guys go build a bigger name for themselves so that they can then come back and draw even more money for you. Instead of keeping them hanging around for no good reason.
And that's what I don't. I mean, in one way, it's good. Like, I'm happy that AEW is here because they're forcing the WWE to pay the guys more, which is good. I mean, it's always good. But at the same time, I think like you hear some of the numbers getting thrown around, and I'm not going to shit on any rest. Like, fuck, they're better off than I am. But like, they're throwing numbers around in the high 6 figures, low 7 figures, and I'm like, no one's tuning in to watch that guy. Like, why are you paying him? And it just does my head in because I'm like, Jesus. How are these guys getting paid this much money and they've never drawn a crowd?
Yeah.
Unbelievable. But that's the whole point. Like, you kind of good on them for making the money, because fuck, they're only in it for a short period of time.
Daniel says, "G'day, Charles."
Hey mate, how are you?
What are your thoughts on the? I don't know whether you've heard the reports that the WWE are thinking of selling off some of the bigger pay-per-views to other networks, or
I don't hate it, because I don't buy the network. I'm not on the I don't subscribe to the network for the pay-per-views. Like, that to me is like, oh, if the Royal Rumble's around, it's a bonus. So I subscribe for the old stuff anyway. So for me, doesn't really bother. I can see why people would get annoyed. And I think they've kind of done it to themselves. You can't give someone something for free for 4 or 5 years and then expect them to then pay for it 5 years down the track. They've I don't know what they would do. I mean, I suppose they had to give it to you at the beginning to get you to sign up, but then once you've signed up, you don't want to give away that freedom that you had. It's just a
it's a hot mess.
It's WWE. It's a complete hot mess. They're gonna screw up probably the only good thing they've done in the last 10 years.
Yeah.
What about you? Would you still watch the pay-per-views if you have to pay $25 for them? Let's say hypothetically.
I'd probably only get WrestleMania if that was the case. I was subscribed to the network for a while due to losing a job and other financial things. I had to cancel it and cut back on a lot of stuff. But I've just recently come back to watching it. Friend let me use their login, so I use that and just sort of catch up on a few of the like the Broken Skull sessions with Stone Cold interviewing Taker and Kane and that sort of stuff that you don't see on the networks here in Australia, like Foxtel and that. And to go back and watch some of the older stuff that you don't get access to otherwise. But other than that,
that's the biggest key.
Other than that, I haven't watched a lot of sort of up-to-date wrestling because of, they use the same guys, they have the same matches. It's just ridiculous in my opinion.
That's the weird thing. That's what bugs me the most about. So I always say this to my brother, and this is something that I'm assuming a lot of people somewhat agree with, is you tend to get all these rematches and like shitty storylines and whatnot, because I always feel like the WWE have their hands in too many pots. Like, if you look at it, you've got Raw, SmackDown, NXT, NXT UK. I don't know if they do 205 Live still. 12 pay-per-views, plus the takeovers, plus the specials, plus the Saudi. I mean, we're talking 1,000 shows a year. You can't focus your energy and give us a good show each week if you're focusing on 1,000 shows a year. It's great for content. It's great for them to say, hey, look how much content we have. But then when people realize that the content, if you slice that in quarters, if you take a quarter of the shows and just focus on that, the actual content of those shows would be 10 times better than what it is. Definitely. And like you said, it's the same matches constantly because they don't have enough time to worry about what every character is going to do. And that's why I know, again, might get a bit of flack for this, but being a Russo fan, you hear when they first brought in SmackDown, he lost his shit because he's like, look, I focus 6.5, 7 days a week on writing Raw. I can't give you the same energy on SmackDown, and I can't do that. It's too much. It's too much content. And that's what I think they've lost the plot.
When he was there in WWE, he was giving, or attempting to give, a lot of these undercard, mid-card characters, he was attempting to give them some sort of storyline, some sort of appearance.
Exactly.
Even if it was like a backstage spot or something, he was trying to give them something. And you just don't get that now to build these characters.
And like I was listening to his most recent show with Disco Inferno, and they were talking about Edge being on. So Edge, he came back at the Rumble. He was on Raw the next night, and he popped a huge number. And then he wasn't on Raw the next week. And he said, look, even if he's on a not a per appearance, but like a very limited appearance basis, and you can't have him on Raw every week, the Raw that he is there for, you should be theoretically filming or taping 5, 6, 7 weeks of backstage stuff that day. You should be. Same thing with Brock Lesnar. If you're not going to have him every week, you've got to be able to think ahead and know the character well enough to be able to go and do pre-tapes on the nights that you do have him, so that when you don't have him, you can still have him on the show. But they don't. That's what I mean. There's too many hands in the pots, too many things going on. They don't think about the little details, and you completely miss opportunities like having Edge on the 2, 3, 4 weeks in a row. You completely lose that momentum, and it kills it.
Edge. Daniel's got a question. What's your thoughts on Orton's segment last week on Raw and the whole Edge and Orton situation? Do you see Christian and the Edgeheads becoming involved? I'd like to see them become involved. I'd like to see them become involved, but I'm not getting my hopes up. Not with the product the way it is.
No. I didn't see the segment. I won't lie. Like, I might have seen 10 seconds of it. I know the basic idea of what happened. I like it. I mean, I think Orton, he should be able to write his own stuff. Let Edge. Don't let the creative team get involved. Let them do it, because they'll know how to do this better than the creative will. Let them write their own program, because I think that's the best. That's where you're going to get the best out of each worker, is if they can have, they can mold it themselves. I think Orton, in general, is completely underrated, still to this day.
I liked him. He was single before he joined Evolution, wasn't he? He was on his own.
Yes, he was. Yeah. Yep. Yeah.
I'm just trying to think. I don't think. I can't remember. I didn't like him for a period there for whatever reason, but he's grown on me since then.
There was that I think it was I think it was JR on his podcast. God knows how long ago now. Him and Conrad talked about how they tried to turn Orton face after, like, when he won the world title and Evolution turned on him, but he just looks like a bloke that he doesn't come across as a bloke that you want to cheer for. Like, there's nothing about him screams good, and that's just him being I don't know if that's him or if that's just a great character. So that kind of bugs me, is when they do that, where they try and put, what's the saying, the square peg in a round hole. He knows who he is. You know who he is. Let him be who he is. Like, not everyone has to be a face at some point. Like, not everyone has to be a heel at some point. Some guys are just faces and some guys are just heels. It just is what it is. Don't mess with success. And I think that's my big issue, is I don't feel like, at least you hear things, that the talent don't have enough of a say in their character. And that's where you end up getting these crappy storylines and shitty gimmicks, because you don't let the talents mold their own character.
And then on that point as well, they try to turn them heel or babyface or whatever. Shouldn't that be up to the crowd to turn them? Whether they want to.
Exactly.
Isn't that the whole history of the whole business?
Correct.
Listen to the crowd, follow what the crowd's. If they're cheering you, great. If they're booing you, great. Work with it.
And that's what I mean. Like, so what really confuses me, I kind of get. I mean, this is where I get the feeling that they have no idea what they're doing. Is you hear Stephanie McMahon come out and say, "Oh, we book everything from like, once we do WrestleMania, we sit there and we book everything for that entire year up to the next WrestleMania. We know everything that's going to happen, right?" And then you hear stories and rumors and news, and I don't know if they're true or not. I mean, where there's smoke, there's fire. You hear about stories about how Vince McMahon's rewriting shows 5 minutes before the show goes on air and during the show. Yeah. So I'm like, well, which is true? Which is true? I tend to not believe that you know what you're doing, and I don't believe that you have any idea what you're doing a year out, because if you watch the shows, it's not written like you know what you're doing a year out. Exactly, it's written as a complete fucking mess.
Absolutely.
And that's what I mean. They don't. So what's confusing me is, if you're listening to the crowd, you shouldn't have to write the show 5 minutes before the show goes on air, you should be able to write it week to week based on what the crowd said. If the crowd doesn't like a guy, you should be able to, theoretically change that on the fly and write week to week. You shouldn't. I don't know why they want to lock themselves into a year-long program, and I don't know why they want to rewrite it 5 minutes ahead of time. Just listen to the crowd. The crowd's telling you what they want. It makes no sense.
It doesn't make sense at all. You mentioned the podcast. Do you listen to a lot of wrestling podcasts? Or?
Yeah, God. Yeah, because I drive pretty much all day. It's just podcasts all day. So I tend to get sick of them after a while. But yeah, I've got 15, give or take. I just rotate through constantly.
Yeah.
It's good. It keeps my mind busy. Otherwise, because I'd go nuts if I just listen to music all day.
The main two wrestling ones that I listen to, I don't listen to each and every one of them. I sort of, whichever topic's my favorite or I'm interested in. But Bruce Pritchard's, was it Something to Wrestle? Bruce Pritchard and Jim Ross. I think they're the main two.
Jim Ross. They're both. I absolutely love Jim Ross. He's the grumpiest, most miserable old man. He's hilarious. When he goes on those rants, like he'll start talking about a topic, and then out of nowhere he just goes on this random rant about the fans, and you sit there and you're like, what the fuck is he talking about? But it's great.
Well, someone who's had that long a run in the business, from the territory days, he's had a lot of experience, a lot of different experiences. I think he knows what he's talking about.
Oh yeah, that's why I like listening. Of all of them, I love listening to his when it comes to facts and figures and like the really what happened. I'm not going to say call anyone a liar. I don't know, but like sometimes I get the feeling like Eric Bischoff and Pritchard and whatnot tend to bend the truth a little bit more. That's just the way I get that feeling. I don't feel like Jim Ross is lying about any. I mean, he doesn't come across like he's bullshitting about anything.
Mm-hmm.
And then, I mean, I might be completely wrong. He might just be completely working the fuck out of me. But yeah, at the beginning, I felt like Bruce was a little bit more authentic. I get some of his stuff. I sort of go, oh, that's not what you said, 2 years ago when you did this topic before. I'm like, don't know if I'm buying that now. But I still listen. Like I mean, I'll listen regardless. So it doesn't bother me too much.
Yeah, I used to listen to. I listened to a couple of the Jericho ones that he did years ago, and Stone Cold, Colt Cabana in his early podcast days was interesting when he had the guests on, and I think Roddy Piper had a podcast for a short while before he passed away, didn't he?
Yeah. I never listened to it, but yeah, I remember hearing about that.
Yeah, I think I listened.
Did you listen to that?
I think I did. Yeah, I got a vague recollection of listening to that, and also I think Flair had one at one point, didn't he?
Yeah, I think Conrad and Flair did one. That's what I was going to say. There's kind of like if you think about it now, that there has been a lot of podcasts from wrestlers, especially legends, that lasted like 6 months and then disappeared, gone.
Yeah.
It's kind of sad. It's kind of like it feels like there's too many now, so it's not profitable for these guys.
Yeah.
So I mean, I can understand why they don't want to do them, but I mean, I'd love to hear Flair just talk, but I just get the feeling he doesn't have the.
Jim Cornette is always entertaining in some aspect or another.
You know what? I more often than not, take the politics out of it. I tend to agree with most of the stuff he says. Apart from I don't want to talk politics with him, and I wouldn't want to talk about Vince Russo with him. Everything else I agree with. They're the only two things I don't want to. I feel like it wouldn't end well. But those, when he does his breakdowns of the AEW and the NXT, I've learned very quickly not to go to the gym and listen to him talk about them because I've almost dropped weight on my feet before listening to him. It's dangerous. There's two. Oh God.
He's got an opinion and he knows how to use it.
He's phenomenal. Oh god, every week because I'm finishing up a Joe Rogan podcast now, and then I'll be jumping on a Jim Cornette on
Which
his. On his
which Joe Rogan one are you listening to?
I'll tell you, it is Andrew Doyle, some English comedian / Twitter guy.
Okay.
I've never heard of him. That's the weird. That's it's kind of the weird thing with the podcast in general, and it even goes to the wrestling ones. I'll listen to people and I'll listen to topics that I like. I mean, I wasn't a fan of wrestling in the 80s. I wasn't even alive. But then I'll listen to JR, for instance, break down a 88 Starrcade. And all of a sudden I realize, oh no, this is actually not just a good episode. This is better than the stuff that I wanted to listen to. So it's kind of like same thing goes with Rogan and all these other different podcasts I listen to. I don't know who the hell this guy was until I put it on, and now I don't want to put it off. Turn it off. It's great.
Yeah, because he posts them on YouTube. He's got a camera. I've been watching the one Joe Rogan one that he did with a guy called Daryl Davis.
Okay, who's that?
He's an African American musician mainly, and he became involved with. Well, not really involved, but he has had some talks and stuff over the years with various members of the KKK, and based on their conversations, these members have left the KKK, and he's been given some of their robes and paraphernalia and stuff, and he wants to build a sort of a history KKK museum just to sort of educate people more. And if you get a chance, I'd listen to it. I wouldn't have watched it, except I came across a short clip of it, of one of the bits, and I watched it. I thought, oh, this guy's interesting. So I found the full one, and I've been sitting there watching it. So
that's the one thing I love about him is he won't just you could flick on any Joe Rogan, or you could flick on 3, 4, 5 different episodes, and they're all completely different people, completely different backgrounds and beliefs and everything. But it's always interesting because he doesn't just stick to the same old, right wing or left wing or black or white, or it's completely random, diverse, community, and it's so interesting to listen to, and that's why I love watching his stuff. It's just two blokes in a room, but it's kind of interesting to watch. It's weird.
Definitely. We got any more questions from anyone out there? If you want to pop them up. I don't know how much time
back in 2 seconds.
No worries, Charles.
I've got a few more minutes.
Alrighty. How's the job going? Going well?
Yeah, it's one of those days. I'm away at the moment, so I'm in Wodonga, Albury, Wodonga. I'm not sure if you know where that is. Just literally right on the border of Victoria and New South Wales.
Okay.
So spent 3.5 hours driving up yesterday, and God.
What do you do again? You're
I service smoke alarms.
Okay. How'd you get into that?
I was doing pretty much nothing, and our family friend's like, "Hey, do you want a job?" I'm like, "All right," and he's like, "Yep, this is what you do." Went for an interview. They're like, "Yep, cool. Here's your stuff. Let's go do 2 days of training." Pass the training, and they're like, "Hey, here's a free car. Here's a petrol card. Go." And that was it. So,
how long have you been doing that for?
Oh God, nearly 3 years. Unfortunately.
Okay. Unfortunately. It's a job. It's better than nothing.
It's true. It's. I mean, it gets pretty boring, but it lets me do stuff like this. I'm happy to, keeps me on the road and keeps me. It's better than being in an office. Put it that way.
Well, it's better than being unemployed, and I can say that from having many periods of unemployment over the last few years.
Don't worry, I'm the same as you. Trust me. I might be young, but I've had a lot of shit happen with work and whatnot. It's a nightmare. So
yeah,
it's always good.
The government don't make it easy, sending all these jobs away and all stuff as well. So
that's what worries me. Is I constantly think about this, like, not my job specifically, but I'm like, yeah, I might be interested in something. So I'm like, oh yeah, hypothetically, let's say I want to be a train driver. But cool, I want to be a train driver. And then I think, it takes me 2 minutes of excitement going, yeah, I'm going to be train. And then I think, oh fuck, hang on, 10 years from now, they're not going to need train drivers, or 20 years from now, we might not need bus drivers. And I'm just thinking, Jesus Christ, like trying to find a job where they can't replace you is like with a machine is not easy.
Yeah.
Kind of scary. Ugh, God.
Well, so we're coming up to WrestleMania season.
Yes. Oh, used to be my favorite time of the year.
It used to be, yeah.
God.
What do you think of these reports of? I've heard reports they want to get Sting and Taker back for a WrestleMania.
Okay, I've seen a lot of people who do not like the idea of this. I don't care if they're in, using walking frames. I still want to see it. I want to see it, knowing that, seeing the guy. So the guy that Sting trains with or trained with, his personal trainer who trains, I don't know if you know, but like Antonio Brown used to train with him, NFL player. A whole bunch of Sheamus trains with him. All these famous people train with him. He's a ridiculously good trainer. If he is still working with Sting, I have all the confidence in the world Sting will be good to go. And the last time we saw Taker, it wasn't great, but it was against Goldberg, who I'm not shitting. I love Goldberg. I still do love Goldberg, but he was never known for carrying a match. I'm not saying Sting can carry Taker either.
Didn't Taker have a match after that?
Oh, yes, he did. He did. Who did he have a match with? Actually, hang on. He had the Goldberg one was in Saudi Arabia, wasn't it?
Yeah.
Who did he wrestle after that? Fuck. This is the problem when you don't watch the product.
I can't think of it either.
Whatever it was. I would still watch it if, like I said, if Sting is still working with the same guy, and Undertaker, I mean, he's been off, long enough to be refreshed. I think if you're going to do it, you kind of have to do it now because it's already past the time you should have done it, but I mean, you can't wait any longer.
I mean, two guys like that, they're going to draw the money no matter what good condition they're in or what bad condition they're in. They're going to draw the money anyway. So
I agree.
But yeah, better to do it now than 3-4 years down the track when they're not in
exactly.
good condition.
And you don't want to. It's just there's always been that one that everyone wants. Like no matter what they say, no matter what Sting and Taker say, they want to have done this. You've got to do it. You have to. And if it's the last match for both of them, I'll take it. I just don't, please to God, don't have a DX and NWO run in. I don't want to see that again. Fuck's sake, that was just a complete mess.
As much as I loved that happening, I don't think it was necessary.
At the first, like that exact moment it happened, it was like, oh fuck, this is cool. And then you think 5 minutes later, you go, why'd they fucking do that? What was the point of that? I'm just like, what that makes no sense at all. But fuck it, get his friends a payday and get the crowd to pop. That's why it worked. Did what it had to do.
Yeah. What about I don't know whether you've seen these rumors that Hogan wants one more match at Mania.
This one's a little bit different. I'm like, oh Jesus. Fuck it. Yeah, I think it goes back to the whole same thing with what we were saying at the very beginning. If you've got no one else that's over and you have to keep going back to the well, fuck, what are you gonna? They've done this to themselves. Hogan should not be wrestling in 2020, but he's going to because they literally have no one else to draw a crowd. I wouldn't be surprised if Hogan wrestled, I don't know, let's say, I don't know, whoever Hogan wrestles, doesn't matter who it is, and then you have Sting Taker. I would not be surprised if this is the most, I wouldn't say the most bought because they don't really sell pay-per-views anymore, but the most streamed or the most viewed WrestleMania in a long time. Because WrestleMania is always going to draw, regardless. WrestleMania is just going to draw. It is what it is.
Well,
But if you have these
the Super
two,
Bowl of wrestling, isn't it?
yeah, and they've
Yeah.
done that to themselves. It used to be about the matches. Now it's about the name.
The spectacle.
Now it's about WrestleMania. Yeah, and it's going to sell anyway. Like you said, it's the Super Bowl. It's the grand final. It's, it is what it is. But if you have something for people to actually want to watch, I reckon this could potentially be, if those two things do happen, the most streamed or the most watched WrestleMania in quite a while. Which is
definitely.
very interesting, because everything is going down, down, down.
Very interesting, but very sad at the same time. If you think about that, especially Hogan, he shouldn't be coming back at this. He doesn't. Well, I mean, he may need to with the money, but he doesn't really need to, name wise or anything like that.
No, it's weird. It's just.
But they've done it to themselves, as you said.
They have. They're not. They have. If you're not going to build your own stars, shit. I mean, how? So this is something that it might be a little bit of a weird way of looking at it, but I think one big issue with the lack of stars today, in my opinion, has a lot to do with you almost had a gap between. So you would look at like wrestling through the 80s, and then you sort of had that period where it crossed over. So you had like the Hulk Hogan era, and then Bret Hart came in, and then Hogan left, and Hart sort of took over with Shawn Michaels, and it always rolled along. You always had guys to take the next step. And my issue was, or the way I look at it is, you kind of missed that a little bit once you had Eddie die, you had Benoit die, you had Kurt Angle leave. God, he had a bunch of other stuff happen in that period. It's almost like you didn't have enough of an overlap in that period, if that makes sense. So you kind of had, like, you still had your Orton, your Batista, your this, your that, but you didn't have enough of an overlap. So I look at it and say a guy like Hogan now wrestling theoretically should be Chris Benoit, let's say, if that makes sense. So the role that Hogan's filling now should theoretically be filled by Benoit and Eddie, and it was filled by Kurt Angle. That's the whole, I think we've missed the last 5, 6, 7 years, is Eddie, Benoit, and Kurt Angle and guys like that would be on the back nine of their career. They would right now be or they would have just finished their careers and just finished a period of time where they've been putting over the new talent. Because you don't have that, because those guys aren't there, and because you weren't sort of able to fill their roles, you now have the situation where you're now going back to the well of the 90s and getting guys who are in their now 60s doing their job, the job of Eddie and Benoit. And it kind of felt like it stagnated, and you missed a group of people. You missed a 5-year time period because guys died, guys left, and you just never filled that gap again. And like I said, I mean, those are the guys I look at now and say, hey, they would be in this role right now, but unfortunately they're no longer here.
Absolutely.
That's a really long-winded answer for a question I don't think that was asked.
Yeah. Anyway, well, we might leave it there, Charles. Thank you for stopping in.
Sounds good.
Helping out, filling in for Bill.
That's all right.
Couldn't make it. I hope to have him on in the next few weeks.
Sounds good.
No worries. Stay tuned. Keep watching the pages, everyone. And thanks for watching. Charles, thanks for coming on.
Thanks, mate. Take care. I'll catch you soon. See you, mate.
Bye.